everybody, welcome to Off the Vine. I'm your host, Kaitlyn Bristowe. Today we have Liz Plank on the podcast, who I have been dying to get on the podcast for so long. I went into my DMs to tell her how excited I was to have her on the podcast and realized that I fangirled over her a while back. I was like, you've changed my life. And I think she's going to change yours too from this podcast. She is a feminist, and we talk about how difficult that might be to be a feminist, talking about masculinity when you're a woman talking about a man. But we dive into all of that. We talk about dating in this day and age. We talk about her book. We talk about gender equality, all of the things. And buckle up for this one, because these two women are going to teach you about men. You move to LA and it's like you have to start doing like green juice and saunas and go gluten free. It's like a thing.
I've become the person that I could not stand. Like a year ago, if I met me, I'd be like, I'm not going to be friends with this person. And I am fully that person now. It's very weird. And it's not okay. Like, it's not acceptable. But I'm doing it.
Hey, I actually have a question about this. How do you find out that you have black mold in your body?
Okay, so you go to like a really expensive doctor that is like, okay, so she's a functional medicine. Basically, the true end of it, the truth of it is that I got long COVID, and I didn't know that I had long COVID. I just had all of these really wild, issues, and I had like all these vaginal health issues, which I would have never thought was connected, but can be. And so she ran a bunch of tests, and then through running the tests, she was like, did you ever grow up with mold? I was like, yeah, our basement had full on mold. Like it was just like a known thing. And she was like, you have had mold in your body since then. So you have to do these, pee samples. Like you have to like do like pee poop, like you go for it. Like you are UPSing your samples to some person who's then going to diagnose you. But it's I don't know, I don't recommend doing it, like finding out, because once you do, it's like a year of your life. You have to take binders, you have to sauna. It's like a nightmare.
I mean, I hope it helps and I hope it makes you feel better, but that's like me with this new Aura ring. Like I got it, and now I go down like rabbit holes of why my sleep score isn't where it should be, like my blood oxygen level. Like I'm going down like a slippery slope of becoming obsessive. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm never gonna get it, and you never find out if you have mold, and then that'll be it.
We're just gonna live in that world where ignorance is bliss, but not the world that you're in. Okay, this is what I was gonna tell you before, because I'm like a little bit embarrassed, but also I'm telling you. So how embarrassing can it really be? But what the first part of it isn't embarrassing. It's actually quite sweet, but the second part is. So I don't remember when I started following you, but I was like, I need to have her on my podcast. Like this is somebody that I feel like I've maybe even reached out before, because I've wanted to talk to you so badly. And then I realized today when we were talking, I went to DM you or say something about excited, and I had sent you a DM and I had said like, I just want you to know that you've changed my life. And like I said you but which is sweet, and I meant it, but I got so embarrassed that you were going to see it. I deleted it today because I was like, she's going to think I'm a psycho.
Caitlyn,
I know.
Why would you delete words of affirmation is my love language? Now I'm never going to get to see it. First of all, I want to apologize that I missed this amazing message.
That's okay.
It sounds wonderful, and I'm so glad that I was helpful in whatever way that you now don't even remember, but that at the time felt meant something to you. That makes me really happy. That's not embarrassing at all.
Well, I'm embarrassed that I deleted it, because I was like, why did I delete that? And well, now I'm telling you. So here are your words of affirmation. You have changed my life. I love what you're doing with your platform. You're so I love having knowledgeable people on the podcast in things that I'm passionate about, because I always say that what I think and feel, it's sometimes really hard for me to articulate, and you articulate things and the way that I feel so perfectly and beautifully, and it just makes me very excited to have you on the podcast today. And just for those that are listening, I wanted you to maybe just share with us a little bit about your background and kind of what inspired you to pursue this career that you're in.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin. I'm very, very heartened by your kind words. So I basically I've been a journalist for 10 years. I wrote a book about masculinity called For the Love of Men. I always have been really, I've always been very infuriated by the state of things, and just by the fact that we live in a society that is so unequal for so many people, and particularly for women. And so, back in 2012, I was living in London. I was doing a graduate program in gender and social policy, and I like started this petition around like the Olympics. They wanted to force female boxers to wear skirts in the ring, and like this was the first time that female boxing was even going to be a discipline, which is wild that was like, it took until 2012. And then I started this petition and with like send it to like my 33 Twitter followers and was like, I'm so annoyed. And then I wrote a piece and the piece went viral and then the petition went viral and then like they changed the rule. Like it like worked. Wow. And so I became really excited about the internet. I became really excited about digital journalism and just social media and how I could use it to meet people who were making things happen and how we could all use it together to change the world. Yeah. So yeah, since then, I feel like that was kind of, I was a one-hit wonder. I don't know if I've done something as big as that first thing I did randomly in 2012.
You have probably without knowing it though. Like you probably have done so many big things. Like you don't even know some of the lives you are touching and you might not see it as much, you know, that one thing that you did. But it's really cool because I always say that the internet, and as you know, can be such a blessing and a curse. And you talk about the power of social media and like falling in love with the internet and finding, you know, like a big enough platform to make a change. And then you see that one person can make that difference by, you know, like getting people to rally behind you. And I was wondering this while you were saying it, does the internet now have the same impact to you? Do you get excited or do you get on there and go, I'm feeling hopeful for our future? Or do you get on there and go, I am scared for our next generation?
All of the above. Yeah. I think that it's definitely become more complex and complicated. It's become bigger, right? I think the pace of technology has definitely outweighed our ability to regulate it and to ensure that it's not used for nefarious things or that it has, you know, bad impacts on us. I wish that our government was awake and like wasn't sleeping, you know, at the wheel around this. I think it's, you know, again, there's a million theories about why. One of them is probably because most of them are balding old white men who maybe aren't the primary targets or aren't the most vulnerable with an unregulated internet. But at the same time, I do think I don't want to be doom and gloom about it. You know, I think that there's so much good that happens on the internet. There's, you know, at this point, it's just a space, right? It's like, and humans are in that space. And so blaming just the environment and is sort of, I think, unproductive. But I think that, no, I think there's so much potential that we can do with it. Even we're talking, we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't for the internet. So it's so become, I think, an integral part of our lives that we don't even notice it and sort of notice the ways that it does improve our relationships and our lives. So no, I as much as I think we're witnessing what happens when there's no guardrails, I do still believe in the internet making the world a better place for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it helps me to just think that way too, because you can always look for the bad and find the bad. You can always look for the good and find the good. And it's depending on what your appetite is on the internet, you can really you can do research. It can be educational. It can bring people together. It can be a really beautiful space if you want it to be. And I feel like that's kind of what you're doing. And I do want to talk about your book, but you said something that made me think, where you said, it's these old balding white men who are just like, they don't get it. And they don't get it in a lot of ways. Like I'll never forget seeing one of, I can't remember even who it was, but when they were doing banning the IVF in, I can't even remember what state that was. Alabama?
In Alabama. Yeah. Recently.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this one man said like, I know it must be really tough. And I'm like, I can't even do it, but I'm thinking, okay, they're old. They're sadly people die. So do you think that generation will actually be gone and then this new beautiful generation will come through? Or are these people passing on these messages to the younger generation? I guess I'm searching for a little bit of hope.
Yeah, no, I think that there's plenty to be hopeful about. Something that I did try and do with my book and that I try and do with all of my writing, on Substack and even with the posts that I do, I really really think that apathy is our biggest, apathy is the best gift that we can give to these balding old white men, right? Is thinking that we don't matter and that what we say doesn't matter is that's the greatest threat, I think, to justice and equality. So I really try with all of my writing to have a framework of solution-based journalism, to make sure that I am not just depressing people with the things that I'm writing, but that I'm actually, and even there's sort of a difference even between like high arousing emotions and low arousing emotions. Like low arousing emotions are sadness, or again, apathy, depression. But even if you make someone angry, if you make someone like that, already to me is better, because that makes them more likely to act, right? It makes them it makes them more likely to get out of bed and to join a movement, or to look in their community and sort of look at who needs help. So I really really try and show people. Yeah, I really try not to depress people, and try with every piece of writing to either make them feel better about the world or make them feel better about themselves. And I think that mental health actually is a political act in that way. I think that taking care of our mental health and making sure that as a collective we are taking care of each other and ourselves makes us more better citizens and more engaged citizens. Because I think a lot of the barriers to action is us believing that nothing's going to change when like things are constantly changing. And even your mention of what happened in Alabama, the internet, right? People responding, people like you, people who are listening to your podcast, being activated, whether it is online or in person, or when they're writing into their newspaper, whatever it is, right? Politicians were shaking in their boots, like Nikki Haley at first, supported it, and then literally a few hours later pulled back. There are people, there was one particular congresswoman, I'm forgetting her name now, but she literally like realized that this was bad, and it made her look bad to support it. So she was like, oh, this is awful. Like IVF is this beautiful thing. And then journalists went into her voting record, and she had supported a personhood amendment, and actively fought for it for the last 2 years, which would make IVF illegal, right? And she got IVF herself, right? And so to me, there's a lot of power in these stories, and and again, like from a media perspective, what you think and what you say really matters. Like it used to be that, social media would be a reflection of the news, but now the news is a reflection of social media. So what you're saying out there in the town square is what journalists are paying attention to and going to be reporting on and, probing politicians about. So it really, the worst mistake you can make is underestimate your own power as a citizen of the world.
Okay, I've been cruising around town on my Bronco because it's Bronco weather. Let me tell you, nothing quite like driving with the wind in your hair and the sun on your face. But you know what's essential for those sunny drives? Yes, SPF, but also a killer pair of sunglasses. Now, speaking of sunglasses, you know how important it is to have shades that not only look good, but also hold up to whatever adventures you throw at them. Well, our friends at Shady Rays, they got you covered. Shady Rays is not just your average sunglasses company. No, they're all about quality shades that will not break the bank. I'm talking about premium polarized shades that are rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. That's literally a lot of happy customers, okay? I always think about it like Taylor Swift sold out the whole huge stadium in Nashville. That was like 70,000 people, okay? So 300,000 people, a lot. Their frames are durable, their optics are crystal clear, and let me tell you, they're perfect for all your outdoor shenanigans, okay? Shady Rays has hundreds of options to choose from, so whether you're into the classic styles or something a little bit more daring, you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your vibe. And here's the best part: if for some reason your shades go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it, I've been there. Shady Rays has got your back with the most insane protection in all eyewear, okay? Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. That's right, no need to stress about losing or damaging your favorite shades anymore. And if you don't absolutely love your shades, you can exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. I'll be wearing my Shady Rays all summer long, and you can too. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code VINE for $20 off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by, again, over 300,000 people. Okay, we all know that taking care of ourselves is essential. Yes, duh. But let's be real, it can sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming, but not anymore thanks to our friends over at Nurex. Nurex is not your average healthcare platform. They are all about making it easy to get the expert care that you deserve, tailored specifically to you. Let's face it, everybody's different. Everybody's different, and your health journey should reflect that. So whether you're navigating life's changes or just need some guidance on your health decisions, Nurex has got your back. They offer personalized care for everything from birth control to anti-aging prescription skincare to common mental health concerns. So no more one-size-fits-all approaches, just effective, tailor-made solutions. Now, here's what really sets Nurex apart. They are championing women to be their own best advocates. What? Can I hear that again? This never happens. With transparency and resources to make informed decisions about your health, you'll have the freedom to ask questions that get real answers whenever you need them, and we love that. With over 50 birth control formulas to choose from, including options for the pill, patch, ring, you'll have the flexibility to find the best treatment option for your needs, plus skip the in-person appointment and complete a medical consultation anytime, day or night, for expert care that meets you where you are. Taking control of your reproductive health, it starts here. Go to nurex.com/vine to get started. That's NURX.com/vine, VINE. Results may vary. Not offered in every state. Medications prescribed only if clinically appropriate, so consultation required. It's interesting too, because your book, you explore masculinity and gender equality, and it's an international best-selling book and went into its 5th printing, which is wild because you were saying that it's selling more now than it did when it came out in 2019. Now, I can guess why that is, but you tell me why you think that is.
I mean, it's funny because when I wanted to write it and I was bringing the proposal around to different publishers, I was told, no, I literally was told word for word, no man will buy this book. Like, men will not buy this book. And I remember at the moment, at that time, I don't know if you've ever had moments like that in your life where you're like, I'm going to remember this quote so that when I'm on a panel, when I'm on an amazing podcast, talking to someone about my book being so successful, I'm going to be able to say that someone said that to me, right? Like where it's almost, when you're told no, it's almost like a dare to get a yes,
yeah,
right?
That is so me. Yes, I did the same thing with, I was told no. Everybody knows the story that listens to my podcast, but I'm going to repeat it just for you. But the creator of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, he did not like me. He always wanted like more of a girl next door, all American sweetheart, and like didn't like my tattoos, didn't like that I was more outspoken, didn't like my sense of humor, like nothing. But the world that watches The Bachelor was craving like a different kind of person coming into this role, and so he had to just kind of surrender to me being this lead. And then after he let all of the men who were the bachelors go on Dancing with the Stars, and when it came time for they asked me to go on Dancing with the Stars, he said, no, I'm sick of you wanting fame after the show and all this stuff, and dancing is like in my blood. My mom was a professional ballerina. It's been like that's my favorite show on television. I dreamt one day of dancing on that stage, and when he told me no, I went, you watch me. And I did not give up that dream for 5 years, and the internet rallied behind me, and I went on 5 years later and won.
Wow. Oh my God. Wait, what? That's
so cool. And I was like,
wait, that's the best story ever. That's crazy.
So I know what you're saying. So okay, continue. Sorry, I had to tell you that story.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you share it, and you should share it as often as you want and can, because we all, again, it's hard to remember that, right? When you're in the moment where you're being told by someone in a position of authority, right? Like, yes. I'd never written a book. I'd never done this before. It was really hard. Even just writing the book proposal felt like it was trying to like kill me. And this person's like, you should write a different book. You should do this. This won't work. This won't,
men won't read it.
So, and just to like one more little story related to that is that one of the people that passed on the book was a very big, one of the top publishing, houses. And I went on Morning Joe the morning my book came out to talk about the book. And her boyfriend was like, uh, getting ready and like leaving earlier than he usually leaves. And she was like, why are you in such a rush? She was like, oh, I have to stop by Barnes and Noble before I go to work. And she was like, why? He's like, oh, I have to buy this book. I just saw it on Morning Joe. It's called like For the Love of Men. And this woman was like, that's the book I passed on. Like her boyfriend was, and so she texted my editor. I should frame this, where she said,
Yes.
I never knew. She said, when Liz, presented her book to us, I couldn't imagine the kind of guy that would buy this book. And now I'm dating him. It's like,
That makes
it's
me want to
just,
cry.
anyway, I mean, it's like, it's just, believing in yourself. And I think men obviously are indoctrinated to believe in themselves, I think beyond even their capacity and abilities. And I think actually that
Yes.
comes from a place of feeling inferior. I don't think the whole thing about men being confident and like I'm really interrogating that whole structure and sort of that whole idea, because I truly think that that they're not confident, they're cocky, right? Like
Yep.
they're told to inflate and to sort of inflate their abilities and their capabilities. But people who do that, it's not because they feel great about themselves, it's because they're not feeling good about themselves, right?
Yes.
So having a healthy sense of who you are, I think is very different from sort of this sort of macho model that we sort of have out there from a lot of white men. But I don't remember what your question was, but I'm glad that we're talking about these kind of stories, and that I think we have to remind ourselves of those moments in our lives. So, because hindsight is always 2020, but there's a version of that right now for you in your life, right? Like of someone telling you you're not able to do something, or questioning yourself. And it's important to think of like future and sort of, what's possible outside of that framework.
Yeah, because it is scary. It's scary when you are speaking up for what you believe, knowing that the higher power can shut you down and shut you up
Yeah.
and not give you what you deserve. And so I remember not even thinking twice about calling this person out, knowing like I'm under contract. He could sue me. He could literally do whatever he wants and take everything away from me. And I still took it to the internet and Twitter and was like,
Good
I
for
called it,
you.
I was just like, misogyny is real. Like I was just so angry,
Yes.
but it felt like something that I couldn't hold back. And I just think,
Good for
I think it's so
you.
cool now to know that men are buying that book. You are now on these panels talking about where your book is at and where it's going. And it gives me a lot of like excitement too, because I think when you are a feminist, people think you hate men. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really like, you probably have faced a lot of challenges in your space
Mm-hmm.
being a woman speaking on masculinity. Have you had a hard time with that, or have you faced challenges like that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, and at the beginning, I think I faced resistance from men who were like, why are you writing about men? You should write about women. And then women who were like, why are you writing about men? You should be writing about women. But right, like from a different perspective, but both sides being kind of upset that I was focusing on men. And again, I get why these publishers were like, your audience is female. Why would you write a book for men? Like, why would you write a book about men if that's not your audience? But I really couldn't help myself. And I found that, putting love in the title, right? Like For the Love of Men, was, and just throughout the book, really coming at it from an empathetic and sort of compassionate perspective,
Exactly.
did help a lot. Like a lot of men would, sort of see my stuff or see me on an interview or even just talk to me and be like skeptical and then read the book. I mean, even like it happened to me in Quebec. I'm from Canada. There was a journalist that
What?
had me
Me
on
too.
the, wait, really? Where are
Yeah,
you from?
I'm from Edmonton.
Oh my God, no way. Okay, that's why
Yeah.
this is okay. Now
The
the
Canadians are
Canadian
clicking.
connection. Oh my
Yeah.
God, no way. But yeah, I had a journalist when my book came out in Quebec in French. I had a journalist, your book comes out, you have a bunch of interviews that, that first week. And it was very combative. It was kind of
Yeah.
weird, right? He wasn't, he's not a right wing guy. But I went in expecting it to be kind of run of the mill, and it was much more. He was very skeptical, and I love that interview being like, okay, whatever. And then a few weeks later, he wrote a column in a newspaper where he was like, I actually read her book and I changed my entire mind about it.
Wow.
Having not read it and like regretted kind of, doing that having that kind of interview. Right. So I think that those examples really, meant a lot to me. And again, like, I want there to be friction and discomfort, and
Yep.
those are the conversations that are worth having, right? And
Yep.
and same with race, and some of the best growth that I've experienced and seen, and sort of witnessed, with conversations around race are conversations that were really challenging, or that I didn't want to have, and so it's, yeah, I feel good about the fact that it's making, and it's made me think, right? Like, there's things that I talk about in the book. I went like on a chivalry diet. Like, I was like, okay, wait, I'm writing about how men are sort of obeying all of these dating rules about, approaching dating in a very transactional way. But I'm kind of approaching it in a transactional way if I'm expecting them to pay and to do all these things. And so
Right.
I just was like, okay, I also have to make some changes. I still now have to come around that I think men should pay on the first date, and maybe the first few. But anyway, that's kind of for a different conversation. But yeah, I
I'm
had
the
to check
same way.
myself. Why do you think that guys should pay?
Well, I actually don't know the answer to this, but I'm so hard to please. I was talking about this example the other day where I'm on an airplane, and if a guy gets up to help me, like put my bags up, I'm literally like, I can do it myself. Like, I don't say that out loud, but in my brain, I'm like,
Sure.
I can do it. And if they
Uh,
don't, I'm like, chivalry is dead. Get out of your seat, you asshole. Like, I'm so hard to please. So I don't know where
so
that is.
true.
And like, I feel that same way with paying the bill. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't, I want to be like, no, I can pay for it. But then if they didn't, I'd be like, oh, embarrassing. Like, I don't know. I confuse myself.
It is. I know. And I think it's good to like laugh about it, and to recognize it, right? That the ideal that we have of ourselves, and our relationships, and our gender dynamics are different from the way that we, maybe feel currently, because we
Right.
are raised in a patriarchy, right? Like, I mean, I think it's the same thing with women and like dieting, like, or getting Botox, right? It's like, I would love to not be, brainwashed by our society's, sort of pressures and expectations to look a certain way. But I, do participate in these rituals. And is it really just because I want to do it for me? Probably not. Right. I
Right.
think we have to also be like, give ourselves some slack. And
Yeah.
that change is hard. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think, I think we have to have empathy for each other, but also for ourselves, and slowly getting there.
Yes.
But I'm the same. I'm not like, yeah, I'm so difficult. Like,
Yeah.
so
I confuse myself all the time. Like, but we are, we're all conditioned to like, just even the way we were raised. I think at this point in life, we know how much of an impact our parents had on us growing up. And men, they grow up being told that boys don't cry. They grow up being told that dolls are for girls and hide your feelings and you're the breadwinner and your masculinity must constantly be proven. And we're, taught to stay quiet and all these things, which I now see, there is a shift happening. There really is. But I just feel like it's so fascinating to be self-aware and like know that that's what has happened and wanting to make a change and just having patience with it. I guess, like you said, it doesn't happen overnight, and having the
yeah.
patience to say like, okay, we have I actually asked this in another interview. It was a sex expert, and I wondered back into like even caveman days of, are
Mm-hmm.
men wired and programmed that way to,
Mm-hmm.
breadwin, go out, get, must feed family, provide, women stay here, do this? Like, is that like ingrained, or do you think that's taught?
I mean, I think so many things. I think that, first of all, and it's a really great question. I think that we analyze caveman eras and cavewoman eras in a way that reflects current biases, right? Or our current structures in society. So even this idea that like men are the ones that go out, women were actually the biggest in terms of just proportionally in terms of how many calories they were, providing for their tribes. Women were actually the ones that with, again, picking fruit. And I mean, yes, sometimes there would be like an elephant that they could eat or whatever animal was out there. But most of the time, right, like 80% of their calories were actually being provided by women. So even, I think that sometimes, and again, a lot of this is because a lot of the people who are studying evolutionary theory and who are anthropologists and who are doing a lot of this research are white men. And so it reflects their own sort of biases, right? Even this like lone wolf, I talk about it in the book a bit, but this whole lone wolf, sort of idea, right, is not even accurate. Like wolf packs are led by a male wolf and a female wolf. There's two. Wow. And it's like, it's not one dude at the front, right? And it's not, anyway. And then there's monkeys, and like people tend to latch onto these theories about us being naturally patriarchal because chimpanzees are patriarchal, but we actually share the same amount of DNA with bonobos as we do with chimpanzees, and bonobos are completely matriarchal. So women run the show, and bonobos have actually eradicated violence against female bonobos because of female alliances. And so there's so much cool stuff about bonobos and just ways for, honestly, us as humans to inspire ourselves from them. So yes, like I would say, of course, there's biology and hormones and all of those things, but very often the way that we're interpreting those results is actually, reflects our social programming.
I'm even thinking about how we on social media, like even how I could do better with gender norms. Like, what do we do on social media that I think that people could maybe just be more aware of that we're like actually feeding into it? Like, what are certain examples? I'm trying to think of something like, I can't think of an example right now, but something that we do that we might not even realize that we're doing.
I mean, in general, we still pay more attention to men's voices. We sort of take men more seriously. I mean, there's so much. I mean, there was a piece of research, I think this is a few years old, but like even on stories about reproductive rights, like men were more likely to be quoted. Like there's just like radical, crazy stuff out there that just sort of reflects our biases. I think that there's still a lot of harassment. I mean, women online, being a woman of color is even worse. Right? LGBTQ, right? Like all of these identities intersect to create a lot more sort of backlash, right? And sort of intimidation of women who use their voices online. I mean, my comments are constantly filled with reply guys who are, or threats and people building like crazy anti-list plane. Like there's some wild stuff out there.
I can't imagine.
I'm not even, the worst. And so, there's a lot of silencing of women. And so I think when men really amplify the voices of women online, when white people amplify the voices of, Black women online, I think that those things really make a difference.
Yeah, that's actually really great advice. In your, I don't know if you're single or dating, but in your dating life, like, do you find it challenging because you are so knowledgeable about what like, is it like hard for you to find men out there that can? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would think that's challenging because I feel like it's rough out there anyways, but like, it's just, you got to be like so aware of topics of masculinity, and it either could hurt you or help you, I guess. It probably helps too. This episode of Off the Vine is brought to you by our awesome friends at Progressive Insurance. Let's talk about podcast genres, shall we? Whether you're into true crime, comedies, celebrity interviews, maybe even some motivational speakers to get you going. By the way, Off the Vine can give you a little bit of all of that. So you get to decide what fills your podcast queue, right? Well, how about having that same level of control when it comes to your auto insurance? Enter the Name Your Price tool from Progressive. The Name Your Price tool is basically like handing you the reins to your auto insurance. You get to call the shots by telling Progressive how much you want to pay, and they're going to do the rest, showing you a range of coverages that fit right into your budget. Options, more options. And if that doesn't sound like music to your little ears, to your little ear holes, I don't know what does. So starting to quote is a breeze, and you'll be able to choose the best option for you in no time. It's just one of the many ways Progressive is putting you in the driver's seat. Pun intended. So why wait? Quote today at progressive.com to try the Name Your Price tool for yourself and join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Okay, do you remember those "Now That's What I Call" CDs that had the best hits of the year? I had a lot of those. Well, if you not only remember those CDs, but you also had one of those, my friend, you're a millennial. And if you're a millennial, it's time to add Clarins Multi-Active Cream to your daily routine. Clarins Multi-Active Cream is here to tackle those first visible signs of aging and combat the damaging effects of stress-induced aging. We're talking lack of sleep, fatigue, and the lightning speed of our millennial lifestyles, all contributing to what we like to call stress aging. Let me tell you, sadly a real thing. But here's the good news. Clarins Multi-Active Cream is rooted in nature and backed by science. With a legacy of creating industry-first, plant-forward products, Clarins is revolutionizing skincare for the modern millennial. Now, this all-in-one cream provides 24-hour hydration and smooth, refined complexion with a healthy-looking glow. So while I may be a millennial at heart, my skin's gonna look like a Gen Z, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. So go to clarins.com/fine to get multi-active day and night cream for 10% off, a free welcome gift, plus free shipping, all on your first order. That's Clarins, CLARINS.com/vine with promo code VINE. Clarins.com/vine, promo code VINE.
What's your take on dating? Because I think it's become insane. Like, I'm legitimately worried for us as a species. Like, and obviously there's a lot of data to support this, but like, half of young men don't even want to be in a, like, prefer to be single, aren't even dating or like looking to date at all. 1 in 4 women under the age of 35 hasn't had sex in the last year. Like, there's like really concerning, sort of trends going on, and I'm experiencing it just firsthand. I'm out in the field, and I'm just like, I find that men and women are extremely annoyed with each other, and like and don't have, it's almost like there's all this accumulated resentment, and I think on like both sides, I think men feel like they can't win, or that the expectations are too high, and women, I think, are finding that they're not able to find anyone to meet their, to really meet the standards that they hold. And so it's just causing a lot of like situationships and just like ghosting and I guess all the things that already existed, but I feel like are on the rise right now. And I certainly like it. I've had instances where like I'll meet someone. This happened to me like last summer. My friend's like, "Oh, hey, this is my friend," and I'm like, "Hey," he's like, and I'm like, "Oh, you kind of look familiar." He's like, "Yeah, we matched on this dating app." And I was like,
No.
"Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, but then when I saw like the title of your book, I unmatched you."
I was like, he said that to you? Ew, you're like, I would have unmatched too to you, bro.
That's the thing. I mean, first of all, he was not hot enough for like to be that much of a dick. And second of all, I think the first thing I think I said was like, glad you never, talked to me, because you wouldn't have like your skin is way too thin to date me. Like, it's a gift. And it truly is though. Like it's I don't ever, there's no part of me that ever wants to compromise, my voice in any kind of way. And in a way, it kind of creates this, barometer, because it means that, I'm kind of weeding a lot of guys who otherwise would not be a good fit out of the way, right? Like, sort of right away. So,
that's what I was
I'm
thinking.
sure, yeah. yeah, what about you? What are you seeing out there?
I honestly, going into any relationship that I'm going to take seriously, I honestly want to date somebody for a full year, like casually, before I'm like, I know who
Wow.
you are and I trust you. Like, I want to date somebody for a full year and date around, even if I see other people in that same year, just until I really feel safe and seen and heard and in love in a year. Like, I want to still, I don't want to be tricked, and I'm very scared of that.
I love this because I'm working on a book proposal, whatever. I'm probably not supposed to talk about it, but like I'm very interested in gaslighting, and because
Yes.
I went through a very similar experience, and it was I'm recovered, but like I don't think I told like I think it takes years to really
Yeah.
recover from being in a relationship where there's so much deception and manipulation, and it makes you really not trust yourself after that.
Yes.
And that part I think is really scary, but it's important to remember that like so I met this guy like at a wedding, like recent, sort of after I was going through coming out of that relationship. And I was like, what makes someone like fall for like a gaslighter or like fall like, because at that point I was just like, I'm an idiot. Like I'm just like it's my fault, right? And he was like, it's something called truth bias, apparently, which is like because you tell the truth, you assume that everyone else tells the truth, which is like a
Ah,
beautiful quality to have.
it
But
is.
right, isn't that like it
Yeah.
made me so emotional when he said that to me. And I think that it's important to, sort of realize that very often when people do that, they're doing it because you're good. Like it's happening because
Yeah.
you're a good person. Like, right?
Yeah.
And people who aren't kind or generous or empathetic or whatever wouldn't have stuck around, but you did because you believed in the best version of that person, even though they could meet that potential.
I love that you have a new podcast on the armchair expert umbrella called
Yeah.
Synced, because first of
Yeah.
all, I love Monica. I love her so
Oh,
much.
she's the
And
best.
that's obviously your co-host.
Yeah.
And it's a podcast where you get to talk about different topics, but you also get to take listener. Like, I would call in every day if I could to ask you
Oh my
questions.
God.
um,
Stop. You're
but
great. I
it's
want to ask you questions.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're fast friends now, Canadians, so you can
Yeah.
ask me anything. But I love that you can have listeners call in, and I just like sometimes I thought of doing that, like, oh, people should call in and I can answer their questions, but I actually need so much time and space to think about an answer, where I feel like you are so good at like right away being able to have an answer. Like, is that something that just really comes naturally to you? I don't know, I just feel like you give great advice.
Thanks. Oh my God, it's so funny because Monica, if I had things, we're doing things my way, I would be taking weeks to think about, every
Yeah,
question, and she does it
same.
where we don't see them. Like we're literally when we're reading them out loud to you, it's the first time we're reading them. So credit to her though for wanting to do it that way. I think it does kind of make it more conversational, right? Like,
Yes.
and like we're just hanging out, and you're telling your friend, for the first time something, and then they get to sort of react to it. But but I appreciate it. I don't think I give good advice. I think I'm, probably from years of being a journalist. Like, I think I'm good at like knowing well being a good journalist basically is being a good listener obviously is like very very
Yep.
important, but knowing what's not being said and what's being said is
Uh,
really really big, and
ooh,
that
that's
is
good.
something that I think if you can do more of that with your friends and with your family or just with conversations, it makes you, I think, yeah, sort of like, again, I'm not calling myself a superior communicator in any way, but I think that it allows for more in-depth conversations and
Yeah.
sort of a deeper connection, because I think it's so special to get to be mirrored by someone else, and for someone else to see those little, to notice those little gaps and to ask you more questions about them.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so, yeah, but I love doing it. I think and I love Monica and Dax, and it's such a fun show to do. And I'm glad that it's helpful to people. I mean, I'm honestly shocked anyone's taking our advice. Like, that's always our kind of joke. It's like,
oh my
we're
gosh,
just
you
like
kidding me?
figuring it out. It's very
No.
unlicensed advice.
But it's
Yeah.
real and it's honest, and
Yeah.
you're right, because of your background and everything that you know, and everything that you're passionate about, you are able to ask the right questions that people need to ask themselves. I think that's part of giving really great advice. And before I'm like literally could talk to you for the next 5 hours. But lastly, it was your birthday this past week, wasn't it?
Yes, it was on Tuesday.
Amazing. A happy birthday. I
Thank
know you
you.
posted on social media about aging and millennial imposter syndrome. And I just found that so interesting because I think a lot of people can relate to the thought of aging, how it can be scary. I always try and like remind myself that aging, I get so scared for so many reasons. One, I'm like terrified of death. I'm scared of the people around me dying. I'm terrified of looking
Wow.
old. I'm like, all of the same things. But then I just always tell myself the alternative is scarier. Dying is like not
Yeah.
aging is obviously the alternative, and that's scarier. But it's we all try to like deny that aging happens, and there's beautiful parts of that, and not so beautiful parts of that. But I saw you were talking about coming up to your 40s. You just turned 37. I'm 38, but you were mentioning how your 30s were better than your 20s, and you believe that your 40s
Yeah.
will be better than your 30s. Just before I let you go, I just want to know your insight on this and the millennial imposter syndrome, because all I've heard ever is how great 40s are, and yet I fear
Yeah.
them because it means I'm getting
Yeah.
older.
Yeah. It's really funny because the day before my birthday, if we were talking the day before my birthday, I would not, I was freaking out kind of like, I don't know why 37 was this difficult number for me.
Yeah.
And particularly with the life circumstances that I'm in, right? Like when I was, when I was a kid, when I imagined 37, I did not imagine me at all. And I still like, there's a wild discrepancy. When I think about my parents at 37 and I think about me, there's a wild discrepancy. It makes no sense. And so really recognizing that, actually, instead of thinking that I can change those circumstances by like working harder or going on more dates or dating more
Yeah.
losers and lowering my standards, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just having a baby with whoever because I just want a baby, like, that's not helpful, right?
Yeah.
What's really helpful is being in like radical acceptance of what is, and that what is different from what was. And thank God, like they,
Yeah.
I wrote this column about a millennial imposter syndrome because it was helpful for me to realize that I wasn't also alone, right? Like it's not a personal failure if our entire generation feels the same way,
Yeah,
It's
no
like
kidding.
the things that were possible for our parents, for many of us are not possible. And
Right.
we just happen to be alive at this wild moment in time. We're in the part, like there's going to be so many movies about this, like our lives right now. There's going to be so many or whatever podcasts are in 20 years from now. Like there's going to be documentaries. There's going to be so much about all of the things that we, went through, and being really compassionate with ourselves rather than thinking that somehow we should have been the exception, and that we, I don't know, again, like have like godlike, abilities to sort of change major life events that have happened, is not. And so what I really try and do is like redefine what success looks like for me,
Yeah.
and be not just an acceptance, but like celebrate the fact that it's different from what it was for my parents or from what it is from you, right? In so many ways, I'm, you know, not where I thought I would be, in a sort of negative way, I guess, where it's like, oh, I thought I
Yeah.
would have kids and own a home. But there's so many other things that I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams that have happened that I wouldn't want to change for the world. And so I try and realize when I'm being like in that scarcity mindset, when I'm just thinking about the things that that I wish, thought I would have and that I don't have, instead of realizing there's so many things that I thought I would never get that I already have now. And so those are the big ones. And then like your thing a little bit about dating, like I know I'm going to meet the person. I know I'm going to have the whole thing. And like the thing, when I'm going to look back on this moment right now, I'm just going to wish that I had more fun while I was like, in that moment. Right. And so, and that's how I feel about everything in my life. Like even when I think about my, 20s, there's so many things I was upset about and that I, thought I needed to achieve that I hadn't achieved. And like, when I look back, I'm like, that was so fun. Like, that was so amazing. So trying to have that mindset. Yeah.
I don't know why it's so challenging to have that mindset, because if I really think about what success means to me, it is breaking the cycle. It is breaking the cycle of like, what, I've been engaged twice and I chose to get out of those relationships because I knew it wasn't right. And the success that could look like a failure to people, but I really think of it as like, success to me is breaking the cycle of doing what you think you should, but actually doing what makes you happy, and not tuning out the noise, because it's always going to affect you, but being able to hear it and move through it. And I keep thinking about situations, or this is going to sound really harsh, but people or situations or thoughts or the noise. I keep trying to think of it as roadkill, where I just want to swerve and move on.
Yeah,
It's
totally
dead to me. It's there,
yes.
and we'll acknowledge it, but just like swerve and move on. And that to me, I'm that's success.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you don't have to give them that much importance, those thoughts, right? It's
right.
And you're in charge, of your life, and in charge of what you want to pay attention to. And so yeah, I love that. I love that. And you're amazing. I mean, it's incredible, all the things that you've done and are doing.
Thank you.
And I already feel so inspired. I love the rule of like dating casually for a year before even making a decision about someone. I love that for you. Yeah, I'm gonna carry that too.
Yeah. I'm talking to somebody right now who's 40, and I'm
How
like,
do you meet people if you're not on the app? Sorry to interject, but like,
no, just mutual friends.
Okay.
Mutual friends. I mean, social media, which basically is like a dating app, it can be.
Sure.
But I'm just like, I'm all for a divorcee who's just been through some life experience, who's done therapy, and just like, it wants to do good in the world. Like, that's kind of just nothing crazy. I want to be like, obviously attracted to them. I want them to be doing good things in the world, and I want them to have seen some shit.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love a divorced dad for you. I like love that. I love that.
I agree.
I was with a divorced dad, and it was the best relationship of like my life. They're like, and yeah, divorce will like force you to deal with some shit. And so I welcome divorced men. I'm not, I think it's usually a better sign.
And now after this podcast, my eyes and ears and everything is peeled, because I want to find you like an incredible human that I can introduce you to. I'm a matchmaker. I'm truly a matchmaker. I've like introduced people who are now married, and I'm like, I wish I could do this for myself. Yes.
Wow. I love that. I love people like you. Like, truly, it means like, it's such a talent. It's such a rare skill, actually.
I actually think I'm good at it.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Well, where do you live? So I can do it for you too.
Okay, so I live in Nashville.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll think about that. I'm less connected in Nashville, but now I'm going to start look through things.
Well, it feels like everybody and their dog are moving to Nashville. I obviously did too. So
that's great.
We'll keep our eyes and ears out for each other. But I just truly enjoyed every second of talking to you. I think you're just such a wonderful human and doing really wonderful things in the world. And I'm really grateful for your time today. And I will, I'm going to resend you my message just so the words of affirmation are in your DM.
I want it. Thank you, Kaitlyn. You're the best. This was so wonderful. You're such a great interviewer, and you're so fun to talk to.
From a journalist that I look up to. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much.
And
tell everybody where they can get your book and find you on social media and your podcast and everything.
Yes. So I'm Feminist Fabulous, one word, on Instagram, Liz Plank on TikTok, and all the things. My book is called For the Love of Men, and my Substack is called Airplane Mode. If you want to subscribe. My podcast is called Synced. If you follow the Armchair Expert umbrella, you'll get it in your feed every Wednesday. And then I also have another podcast called Man Enough, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll be seeing you in the DMs real soon.
Yes, I can't wait. Thank you, Kaitlyn.
I'm Kaitlyn Bristowe. I'll see you next Tuesday. See you next